Okay, let's go over this last test for the year. It's an introduction to geometry. Okay, first concept you have to be able to do is find the midpoint. So I'm going to give you 2 points. You need to know to find the midpoint, you simply add your x values together. So I'm going to add a 6 and a 5 together. That's going to be 11, and then I divide it by 2. So 11 divided by 2, you can use a calculator, it's going to be 5.5. That's my x value. For the y, I add the y's, a 1 plus negative 3 divided by 2, that's going to be a negative 2 over 2, which is a negative 1. Okay, so the midpoint between those 2 points this point right here would fall right in between. Okay, for the other one, you add the x's together, you're going to have 6 plus negative 2, take half of that, so this will be a 4, half of 4 is a 2. Okay. You can do this in your head, great. If not, use a calculator. So here we get a negative 8. Half of negative 8 is a negative 4. Okay, so that should be very easy to do on the exam. Okay, so then for this one, though, slight difference. I'm giving you the midpoint, and I'm just giving you one of the endpoints. So take this one endpoint, the x value, we're going to have to add it to another x value, divide by 2, and it should equal the x value of your midpoint. Okay, that's the setup. To solve this, you multiply both sides by 2. So to undo division, we multiply, so it's really 7 plus x equals 2. And then to solve for x, we just subtract 7, and you're going to see that we get negative 5. Okay, so my x value of the one endpoint is a negative 5. To find the y value, I take the y value plus another y value, which we're going to solve for, take half of that, and set that equal to the y value of the midpoint. And just like last time, we double. So I'm going to multiply 6 times 2, I'm going to get 12, and then I'm going to have to add a 2, and we're going to see that it is 14. So negative 5, 14 is the endpoint. Okay, so again, if I want to quickly check, I add these together, the 7 and the negative 5, and I will get a 2. Half of 2 is the x value of the midpoint. And if I add the y's together, my negative 2 and 14, that's going to be a 12. Half of 12 is a 6. Okay, so just double check. When you get an answer, you can quickly check. For this one, my endpoint is negative 9, the x value, plus another x value, divide by 2, and it should equal negative 7. And again, a pretty easy equation. When you're in geometry, you're not going to have to do really hard algebra, just a basic algebra like solving equations. So we should be able to double both sides, get a negative 14, add 9 to both sides, and when you add 9, you're going to get a negative 5. Okay. For the y value, I have a negative 5 plus y equals a 10. Okay, so I'm going to double the 10. And when I double the 10, I'm going to get a 20. And when I add a 5, I get a 25. Okay, so negative 5, 25 is my answer. And again, if you quickly add the x's together, divide by 2, it will agree with the negative 7. Same thing for the y's. Negative 5 plus 25 is 20. Half of 20 is the 10. Okay, so make sure you can do that for your exam. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give you I'm going to ask you to find a distance, given 2 points. So the distance formula is the square root of the x's. We subtract the x's and square it, and we take the differences in our y's, and we square it. Okay, so formula is that. And so for this, I'm going to show the workboard. I'm going to then use a calculator. I have to subtract my x's, 7 minus 0, and then I square it, and then I take a 5 minus 4 and square it. Okay, so before I pick up this calculation, I can do pretty easily. It's going to be 7 squared plus 1 squared. I know 7 squared is 49. I know 1 squared is 1, and I know together that's a 50. So then I'm just going to pick up my calculator, and I'm going to ask the kid, because I want it rounded to the nearest decimal point, the tenths. So square root, so second, and then the square button is the square root button. and I type in a 50. And I'm going to see it's about 7.1. So the distance between those 2 points is 7.1. Okay? So for then the other problem, I take 6 minus negative 8, and I'm going to square it. So just be careful with minusing a negative. You can do that on the calculator. And then I'm going to have my y value of 4 minus my other y value of 7. Okay? So if you can't do that in your head, I know it's 14, but you can ask the calculator. 6 minus negative 8 is going to be 14. We're going to square it. And then I'm going to have a negative 3, because 4 minus 7 is going to be a negative 3. And we're going to square it. Okay? So 14 squared is going to be 196. Now, when you square a negative, it needs to be in parentheses. So if you want the calculator to correctly tell you that negative 3 times negative 3 is a 9, it has to be in parentheses. Because without parentheses, if I just did negative 3 squared, it's going to tell me negative 9. It's not negative 9, it's a positive 9. Okay, so then you're going to have the square root. Let's first add the 196 and the 9 together to get a 205. And then I'll ask the calculator for the square root of 205. And it's about 14.3. Okay. Should be easy. Again, you're going to be able to use your this practice during the exam, so you'll be able to, look at the formula for distance between 2 points. This next section should be very easy. Okay, with triangles, we should know that the sum of all 3 angles is 180. Okay, so if I'm asking you to come up with one of the angles of a triangle, I simply add the 2 that I'm given. So this is a 144, this, and this is 144, and I'm going to subtract it from 180. So 180 minus 144 is going to be 36 degrees. Okay, so that missing angle is 36. Okay, for this next one, you're just using my calculator. I'm just taking 66 plus 72. That's 138, and I'm going to subtract that from 180. Okay, so 180 minus 138 is going to be 42. Okay, so that's just numbers. Now, if I don't give you numbers, I'll give you numbers and a variable. We should know how to solve a simple equation. All 3, now this is 90, so these 2 just have to add up to 90. So if I take 8x plus 20 plus 40, and I'll show it this way. I'll add a 90 and make it equal to 180. But you could have also just put the 8x plus 2 plus 40 equals 90. I could subtract the 90 right away. But since I did it this way, I'm going to add up a 2, 40, and a 90. That's going to be 132. When I subtract the 132, I'm going to get 48. And when I divide, I get a 6. Okay, so they just want us to know what x is. X is a 6. Okay, for this one, I have a 10x plus the 70 plus the 40. All 3 would have to equal 180. Clean up this side. This is going to give you 110. When you subtract 110, you're going to be left with 70. When you divide by 10, you're going to know that x is a 7. Okay? This next section, same concept, but then I actually want to know angle A. So I have angle A right up here. I want to actually know the value. So once I know what x is, I'm just going to take 4 times x. So we do it just like we did the previous section. I add the 3 angles together, set it equal to 180. So this is going to be 10x. And I'm going to subtract 80 right away. So it's going to be 100. And then I'm going to divide. And we get x is 10. Now don't stop there. I need to take this 10, plug it in. 4 times 10. Angle A is 40 degrees. Okay. That's how we solve for a missing angle. So this last problem here, it's 55 plus x plus 85 plus 50 will give you a 180. X and x, this goes back to our first chapter when we were just solving basic equation, multi-step equations. This and this and this all adds up to 190. So when you subtract 190, you're going to have a negative 10. When you divide, you're going to get x is negative 5. Okay, again, don't stop there because I want to know A. A is 55 plus my x, which is negative 5. You're going to see that A is 50 degrees. Okay, should be easy on your test. This right here, we saw this in that big idea assignment. We talked about bisector would bisect this segment. It creates a midpoint. Okay, this is the halfway between PQ. So segment PQ, halfway between it is this M point, and it's cut by a line. So this whole thing is line L. So you would want to pick that. It's not a ray. This is the symbol for ray. Rays have just one point, and then it goes forever in one direction. And then this is just a point. So now they want to know what MQ is, the actual value of MQ. Well, you just solve a simple equation. I know this is equal to this. Okay, so you set it equal to each other. We know how to solve an equation like this. We add the 2x, we'll get a 7x. We add the 3, we'll get a 14. And we'll get x is 2. And if x is 2, all I need to do is plug 2 in right here. It really shouldn't matter which side I plug it in because you're going to get the same value since both are the same. But I'm going to take 11 minus 2 times 2. 11 minus 4, it is a 7. Okay. This next one, just be careful. And again, part of geometry, which you're going to learn in geometry, how we name segments. And here I want to know the segment X, Y down here. So I'm asking for the entire length. But the first thing we want to know is identify the segment bisector. So here's my midpoint, and this time instead of a full line, it's just a half line, which is a ray. And how you name a ray, you always start with the starting point, okay, which is M. And then you just use another point that's this random point on this is N. So MN is the ray that bisects that. And then we want to know, okay, what is this total length of this? So just like before, I set the two parts equal to each other. This is equal to this. I'm going to get a 5x when I subtract the 3x. When I add the 24, I'm going to get a 25. When I divide, I get x is 5. And if x is 5, I'm going to plug it in here. I'm going to get 3 times 5 plus 1, which is going to be 16. Well, this other side, if I plugged in a 5 here, 40 minus 24 is also 16. Total length, x to y, is 16 plus 16, which is 32. Okay? So make sure you know how to do a problem like that. And now this part, this is that trig. This is knowing SOHCAHTOA. So this is just an intro to your trig concepts, which you will learn in more detail in geometry. And if you ever go beyond geometry, you'll learn it in Algebra 2 and in trig. So here's my angle A. We should know SOHCAHTOA. And I have this on my sideboard in class. Okay? So sine is the opposite over the hypotenuse. Well, here's my angle A, so this is my opposite side. The hypotenuse is always across from the 90-degree angle, so this only applies to right triangles. And so this is my hypotenuse. So all I need to do is just say it's a 9 over 41. You're just telling me the ratio. Now, eventually, later on, we'll learn how to actually find that angle that has this ratio of 9 inches or whatever the unit is over 41 inches. That is a unique angle. We'll learn that later. So here's Z. Here's my opposite side. So tangent is the opposite and adjacent. So just be careful here. They both look adjacent, but here's your hypotenuse, and then this is your adjacent side. So the side right here, the non-hypotenuse, is going to be 24 in this case. So it's going to be a 7 over 24. Okay. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So it's going to be a 48 over 50. And then I would want you to reduce it. Remember, your calculators can reduce for you. If you type in the ratio of 48 out of 50 is a 0.96, math, enter, enter, it's going to be a 24 out of 25. That is a slightly better answer. Okay, so reduce if possible, so try to follow that. X is here. It's opposite over the adjacent, which is a 16 over 30. That's going to reduce to 8 over 15. Okay. For cosine, that's your adjacent side. So find z. So z is right here. My adjacent side is the 21. The hypotenuse is a 29. So it's just simply a 21 over 29 ratio. Okay, cosine again. Here's my x. My adjacent side, side next to, that's not the hypotenuse, is a 35. The hypotenuse is a 37. Okay, so again, should be very easy. Okay, it won't take long to do this if you know, okay, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Opposite over hypotenuse. Okay, and tan, it's going to be the opposite over adjacent. So 18 out of 24, which will reduce all the way to 3/4. Okay, so again, if I take my calculator, 18 out of 24, it's going to be a 0.75. So 18 out of 24, math, enter, enter, you should know is a 3/4. Okay, and then the last thing you have to do, you just need to remember the Pythagorean theorem. Okay, so Pythagorean theorem only works for right triangles. If I give you both legs, all you're going to do is add the one leg and the other leg, and it's going to equal the hypotenuse. Okay, so if I take my calculator, 3 squared plus 4 squared is going to be 25, and then you take the square root, and in this case, it's just a 5. Okay, so x is a 5. Okay, if it's not a nice number, you just need to round to nearest tenths. So this one, I'm going to take an 8 squared plus 6 squared. Whoops, I hit the wrong button. 8 squared plus 6 squared is going to be 100. So x squared equals 100. Therefore, x is 10. And so all I did was 8 squared plus 6 squared, and you take the square root. Okay? For this one, I give you the hypotenuse. So if I give you the hypotenuse, then we have to subtract. So we're just going to type in 15 squared minus 9 squared, and then take the square root. So 15 squared minus 9 squared is going to be 144. And that's what x squared is. And so therefore, x is just a 12. Okay? So once again, this one, I give you the hypotenuse. So I take 13 squared, there you can see it, 13 squared minus 5 squared. So 13 squared minus 5 squared is going to be 144. You take the square root of that, and you get a nice 12. Okay? And then these last two will come out to decimals. But notice I give you the hypotenuse. So I give you the biggest side. I square that, type that in your calculator first, minus the leg squared. You're going to get 55.89, and then just take the square root of that. Square root of that answer, I'm going to get about a 7.5. Okay? So again, I took 11.7 squared minus 9 squared. And then here I just add them together. Take the 7.3 squared plus the 6.4 squared. Ask the calculator what that is. 7.3 squared plus 6.4 squared. We get 94.25, which we needed to take the square root of, and we get about a 9.7. Okay? That's all you got to do. So your test, this covers everything on your last test. So if you want to do well on it, make sure you understand these problems, ask for help, get your assignments done, complete the notes, and you should be able to end the year with a very good grade. And that gets you ready for next year if you're taking geometry. Okay? So thanks for watching. Take care.